You have paid $18 for the same perennial 3 times over the last decade, and right now, 3 of your neighbors are digging up that exact plant and throwing it on the compost pile because they have too many. That is the trap almost every American gardener falls into, buying and replanting the same plants when the best perennials quietly hand you free plants every season. 11 perennials multiply themselves 3 ways: seed, spread, split. Late summer is the best window to turn 1 clump into 5 before winter. Number 1 turned 1 starter plant into more than 100 free divisions across my garden, and it is a plant almost every gardener walks past on every nursery visit without a second glance. Number 11, butterfly weed. Bright orange, flat-topped flower clusters on 2-foot upright stems from June through August. Butterfly weed is the native milkweed that is not the aggressive spreading milkweed everyone worries about. And this is Asclepias tuberosa, the well-behaved species that stays in a tight clump exactly where you planted it. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, sandy, well-drained, poor soil. Do not amend the soil for butterfly weed. She wants it lean, deer-resistant, drought-tolerant once established. The multiplication method is seed. Butterfly weed produces those distinctive milkweed pods in late summer that split open in October and release parachute seeds on the wind. Collect a few pods before they fully split, dry them in a paper bag for a week, and you have hundreds of seeds. Sow directly in the garden. In November, the seeds need a cold winter to germinate, and in spring, you have dozens of seedlings. Why plant her this August? Butterfly weed has a deep taproot that makes established plants nearly impossible to move, so you plant her once in the right spot. August planting gives the taproot 2 months to drive down before winter. Number 10, Shasta daisy, the classic white daisy with the golden center that every American cottage garden has grown for a century. 2 to 3 feet tall on strong stems, blooming June through August, and completely reliable in every zone from 3 through 9. Full sun, average garden soil, prefers moderate moisture, but tolerates dry once established. The multiplication method is division every 2 to 3 years, and here is the thing, every Shasta daisy owner learns eventually. If you do not divide, the center of the clump dies out, and you end up with a hollow donut of dead crown surrounded by a ring of live plants. Division is not optional maintenance. It is the plant telling you it needs to be split, or it dies from the middle out. Dig the whole clump in early fall. Cut through the crown with a sharp spade into 4 to 6 pieces, each with roots and green leaves. Discard the dead center. Replant the outer pieces, spaced 12 to 18 inches apart. 1 clump becomes 4 to 6 plants in under an hour. Cultivar picks. Becky is the tall 3-foot old-fashioned classic that PPA named Perennial Plant of the Year back in 2003. Snowcap is the compact 1-foot version for the front of the border. Both divide identically. The second bonus, Shasta daisy, is a cut flower plant. Cutting flowers for the vase is basically deadheading. The more you cut for arrangements, the more the plant blooms. Number 9, Sedum autumn joy, the perennial that gives you 3-foot upright succulent stems topped with broccoli-like flower heads that change color from pink in August to rose in September to burgundy in October. 1 plant giving 3 months of shifting fall color, zones 3 through 9, full sun, poor to average, well-drained soil, drought tolerant to the point that watering actually shortens the plant's life. Now the multiplication method that makes Sedum the beginner's easiest perennial. Cuttings. Break off any stem at any time from May through August, stick it 3 inches deep into the soil in another spot in the garden, water it once, and walk away. It roots within 2 weeks. There is no soaking, no rooting hormone, no misting tent. Sedum is literally that easy. For faster garden expansion, break off 10 cuttings from 1 parent plant and stick them in different spots along the same bed. In 1 season, you have a row of 10 new Sedum plants, all cloned from the mother, all identical in bloom color and habit. Sedum also divides beautifully in early spring if you want to multiply that way instead. Dig the clump, cut apart, replant. Both methods work. Cuttings are faster, the insider extension. Sedum Autumn Fire is the improved version of Autumn Joy with better disease resistance and stronger stems. Matrona has burgundy foliage. All propagate identically by cuttings. Number 8. Catmint, Nepeta, Soft cloud of blue-purple flowers on 12 to 18-inch mounded plants from May through July, and again from August through frost after a midsummer cutback. Deer walk past. Rabbits ignore her. Pollinators cover the flowers all summer. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to part shade, any soil that drains. Drought tolerant. The multiplication method is division every 3 to 4 years. Dig the whole clump in early fall or early spring, cut apart with a sharp spade or a serrated garden knife, replant the pieces. One large clump gives you 3 to 4 solid new plants. Softwood cuttings also work. Take a 5-inch stem tip in late spring, strip the bottom leaves, poke into moist soil, and it roots in about 3 weeks. Not as easy as sedum, but a valid method if you want fast multiplication without disturbing the parent. The midsummer secret every catmint gardener eventually learns. After the first bloom flush ends in July, cut the entire plant back by half with hedge shears. She responds with a full second flush of flowers into September, and she produces denser new stems that become better division material for the following spring. Cultivar picks. Walker's Low is the reliable compact classic and my most often planted catmint over the years. Cat's Meow is the tighter 12-inch mound for smaller beds. Six Hills Giant is the 3-foot big clump version if you want a dramatic mass. Question for the comments. If you have already turned one perennial into a whole garden bed by dividing it, tell me which plant became your free plant machine plus your U.S. state. Every reply shapes what I feature in the next video. Number 7. Hardy Geranium, Cranesbill, the low-mounding, shade-tolerant perennial that carpets a bed with delicate, 5-petaled flowers in pink, blue, purple, or white for weeks in early summer. Zones 3 through 9, part shade to full sun, any average soil. The multiplication method is division. And here's what makes hardy geranium the easiest divide in the perennial catalog. The plants spread outward in a spreading crown, and each spring you can take a sharp spade, drive it straight down through the outer edge of the clump, lift a wedge with roots and foliage, and move it elsewhere. The parent plant does not even notice. I did this with a single Roseanne hardy geranium planted somewhere around 95, maybe 96. I bought one plant for $8 at a specialty nursery. Every 2 years for the next 20 years, I lifted a wedge from the outer edge and moved it to a new spot in the garden. 20 years later, that one original plant has become 14 Roseanne plants scattered across 3 different beds for $8 total. The catch with named cultivars. Roseanne is a sterile hybrid. She does not set viable seed, so you cannot multiply her by seed. The only way to make more Roseanne is division. The species types Geranium sanguineum, Geranium macrorhizum do self-seed if you leave flower heads on the plant, but the seedlings are not identical to the parent. They revert toward the wild species. For consistent color and habit, always use division. Under trees and along shady walkways is where hardy geranium earns its position on this list. She is one of the few perennials that gives you dense, pretty flowers in dry shade, the spot most gardeners cannot fill with anything else. Number 6. Black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia, the bright yellow daisies with black centers on 2 to 3 foot upright stems from July straight through frost. Cover a bed in yellow for months. Native, zones 3 through 9, full sun to part sun, any soil. 2 multiplication methods work with Black-eyed Susan, and both are easy. Seed, Rudbeckia self-sows enthusiastically. Leave 3 or 4 flower heads to mature on the plant into October. The black centers are actually seed heads. As the heads dry, they drop seeds into the surrounding soil, and next spring you have dozens of small Black-eyed Susan seedlings coming up around the parent. Transplant them wherever you want more. This is the fastest way to fill a large bed from one starter plant. Division. The clumps expand outward every year and can be dug and divided every 2 to 3 years in early fall. Sharp spade through the crown into 4 or 5 pieces and replant 12 inches apart. The double bonus. Leave a portion of the seed heads on the plant through fall and winter. They are one of the top winter food sources for goldfinches, juncos, and chickadees. So you get free Rudbeckia seedlings next spring and bird food all winter from the same flower heads. Cultivar picks. Rudbeckia fulgida goldsturm is the standard, PPA winner from 1999, and the most reliable black-eyed Susan for the average American garden. American Gold Rush is the improved cultivar with better disease resistance introduced in 2020. Both self-seed and both divide identically. One thing worth mentioning before number 5. The whole system for building a garden that pays you back in free plants year after year lives in a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. This is the long version. I won't bring it up again. Number 5. Joe Pye Weed. Little Joe, the native perennial that gives you 5-foot dramatic vertical stems topped with dusky mauve-pink flat flower panicles from August through October. One of the largest, showiest natives you can plant in an American perennial border. Little Joe, specifically, is the compact cultivar to plant. The wild species can hit 7 or 8 feet, but Little Joe tops out at 4 to 5 feet, which is manageable in most home gardens. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to part shade, prefers moist to average soil. Joe Pye can handle occasional wet conditions the way Turtlehead can. The multiplication method is division every 3 to 4 years. Dig the whole clump in early spring. Joe Pye develops a substantial root ball, so bring a sharp spade and some patience. Cut the crown into 3 or 4 pieces, each with roots and emerging stem buds. Replant 12 inches apart. Water deeply. Seed also works. Leave a few flower heads on the plant through fall. The seeds drop through winter and germinate in spring. The seedlings do not always come true to the compact cultivar habit. Some may revert toward the taller wild species. So, if you want reliable Little Joe, use division. The wildlife payoff makes Joe Pye weed worth the space. Every native butterfly in the eastern half of the country works Joe Pye flowers when they open in August. Swallowtails, monarchs, painted ladies, fritillaries. 12 species on a single plant on a warm August afternoon is a normal sighting. If you want to build a pollinator garden that actually feeds pollinators through late summer, this is the anchor plant. Number 4. Culver's Root, the perennial that gives you 4 to 5 foot vertical white flower spikes rising above world foliage in July and August. Architectural drama that looks intentional and expensive from 30 feet away. Native to the eastern United States prairies and open woodlands. Zones 3 through 8. Full sun to part shade, average to moist soil. The multiplication method is division every 4 to 5 years. Culver's root is slower to multiply than the other plants on this list, but the divisions are substantial and reliable when you do them. Dig the crown in early spring as new growth begins. Cut apart with a sharp spade into 3 or 4 pieces. Replant 3 feet apart because these are big plants that need room. There is a specific reason Culver's root belongs on a multiplication list even though it is slower than the daisies and geraniums. The divisions take. Every piece you cut off the crown, if it has any roots attached, grows into a full plant within 2 seasons. No losses, no fussing, no worrying about whether the divisions will make it through winter. Culver's root is one of the most reliable slow multipliers in the perennial trade. Native bee species swarm the flower spikes for the entire 6-week bloom period. Bumblebees especially favor Culver's root over almost any other August perennial. If you have been trying to build a native pollinator planting and wanted something taller than coneflower and less aggressive than Joe Pye weed, this is the middle height native to add. Cultivar picks. Veronicastrum virginicum is the standard native species and the most reliable. Fascination is the pale pink cultivar for gardeners who want variation from the standard white. Number 3. Hosta, the perennial that turns the darkest shade corners of the yard into a lush, textured, layered garden and gives you more free plants per parent than almost anything else on this list. Zones 3 through 9, full to part shade, moist, humus-rich soil. Every American shade garden has hostas for a reason. The multiplication method is division, and hosta is the plant that turned a whole generation of gardeners into propagators because the mechanics are so satisfying. Dig the whole clump in early fall or early spring. The crown is dense, meaty, and full of white pointed shoots waiting to become new leaves. Cut the crown into wedges with a sharp spade or a serrated bread knife, each wedge with at least 2 shoots and a chunk of root. A mature hosta clump typically gives you 6 to 10 new plants from one division session. The insider timing: do the division in early fall, September, or early spring before leaves fully unfurl. Avoid summer. Hosta transplanted in July heat sulks for months. Cultivar economics. A large Hosta cultivar, like Sum and Substance or Empress Woo at the garden center, runs $40 to $60. Buy one, plant it in a starter spot, let it establish for 3 years, then divide. You now have 6 plants at $10 each cost basis, and each of those, once mature, divides again. One purchase becomes an entire shade garden of the same premium cultivar over a decade. I bought my first Sum and Substance Hosta somewhere around 2000, maybe 2001. One plant at a specialty nursery for about $35. By the middle of the 2010s, that one plant had produced enough divisions to fill an entire 20-foot shade border on the north side of the house. That is what Hosta does for a patient gardener. One request: subscribe if you want these videos landing in your feed. The subscribe button is the only reliable way to keep this content finding its way to you. Number 2. Chrysanthemum Sheffield Pink, the hardy garden mum that turns almost every gardener over 60 into a permanent believer because she has been quietly handed down through generations of American families as a fall-blooming pass-along plant. Not the potted supermarket mum you buy every October at the grocery store and throw away by December. This is Chrysanthemum Sheffield Pink, a true hardy perennial mum with soft apricot pink single-petaled daisies from late September through November. Zones 5 through 9, full sun, average to well-drained soil. The multiplication method is division plus basal cuttings. In early spring, when the plant is 6 inches of new growth, dig the crown, cut apart with a sharp spade into 3 or 4 pieces, replant. Or take basal cuttings, pull off individual new stems from the crown with a bit of root attached, plant in loose soil, water, and each cutting establishes as a new plant in about 6 weeks. Both methods work reliably. But the real story of Sheffield Pink is the pass-along culture that keeps her spreading across American gardens without ever going through a garden center. My grandmother had a row of Sheffield Pink chrysanthemums along the walkway to her Ohio farmhouse from the 1950s. Every fall visit in October, my mother went home with a bag of divided starts. Every neighbor who admired the row also went home with divisions. In the 70s, 90% of the front yard fall chrysanthemums on my grandmother's street had originally come from her garden. That is how Sheffield Pink spreads, not through purchases, through gifts. The one caution: Sheffield Pink is hard to find in commercial garden centers. She is almost exclusively a pass-along plant. You get her from another gardener, a local plant sale, or a native plant society trade. If nobody in your circle grows her yet, try Bluestone Perennials or a specialty perennial mail-order nursery. Once you have one plant, you never need to buy another mum. If any perennial in your yard right now came from a friend, a neighbor, or your grandmother's garden, hit the like button. Number 1. Chives, the perennial that most American gardeners plant as an herb and never think of as an ornamental. That is the mistake. Chives multiply 3 different ways at once: seed, bulb offsets, and division, which makes them the single most prolific free plant producer on this entire list. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to part shade, any soil that drains. Seed, purple globe flowers open in June, drop hundreds of seeds by July, and next spring you have chive seedlings coming up in every nearby crack. Bulb offsets. Each mother bulb produces 2 or 3 baby bulbs underground every growing season. Dig the clump in fall, gently separate the bulbs into individuals. Replant. One clump becomes 30. Division. Simply cut the clump in half with a spade at any time from spring through fall. Each half is a new instant plant. Ornamental value most gardeners miss. The June-July purple flowers are stunning in a perennial border. Bees swarm them. Deer walk past. Rabbits ignore them. That is why chives are number 1. No other plant on this list gives you 3 multiplication methods in one plant. 11 perennials, every one of them a lifetime end to paying garden center prices for something your yard is designed to hand you for free. Plant them or divide them this August, while the roots have time to settle in before winter, and next spring, one clump becomes a whole border. The plant to try first is number 1, chives. Because 3 multiplication methods on one plant is a mathematical unfair advantage that no other perennial offers. Drop your zone and which one you are multiplying first in the comments. I read every one.